The Stillwater Monoculture conversion project came about as we were doing range inventories in the northern part of the county. We were seeing crested wheatgrass stands that were in such large quantities that they were actually becoming a detriment to us being able to create grazing rotations that changed season of use effectively while still being able to maximize the nutritional quality of the range that we were trying to write the plans for.
Crested wheatgrass is really good in the spring, but it's got its seasonal use. By having a more diverse amount of grasses, the season could be used from early spring through late fall even. Whereas crested wheatgrass matures and the cows really don't like it. Once it turns yellow, it gets stiff. They really don't. You have to force them to eat it, and that's not a good situation.
This particular parcel is around 65 acres. It was in crested wheat and with a little bit of alfalfa interspersed in it. It wasn't really producing a whole lot.
So the basic prescription for this was year one, we were looking at a spring burn down pass with chemical, kill out the crested wheatgrass and any weeds that were present. And then we were going to no-till in our cover crop species.
We needed a cover crop that could be planted about the first part of June and provide additional forage and grazing later in the fall.
I had very limited experience with cover crops prior to this. They're kind of expensive, and so it was nice to get a little help to kind of get pointed in the right direction, and especially with the different cover crop species that would be involved in this.
And the second year, we did the same thing, sprayed it out, seeded again. That year I did hay it. Made a tremendous crop of hay. It was a good wet year. And then the third year, spray again and seed it to the grasses.
On the right-hand side over here, we've got the mix that you seeded for the third year of this project. And what we're kind of walking in here is what the field really looked like prior to that renovation taking place.
It's really difficult to take out crested wheatgrass and then plant straight into another perennial. And the reason for that is you have to make sure that the crested wheatgrass has been completely killed, and you have to make sure that you have controlled any other perennial weeds. So if we plant 2 years of cover crops prior to planting that perennial, that gives us multiple different windows for weed control.
What we're looking at today this was planted this spring. This particular parcel has a good stand in it, and we're just trying to keep it viable, and hopefully it should survive the drought as long as the roots are developed enough to withstand it.
Now, did you think there were too many sunflowers that first year, or were you okay with them?
I liked it.
Okay.
Because the sunflowers, it was kind of good late season. The cows didn't bother them too much.
Yeah.
And so then the birds, you should have seen the birds in here. Our thought process with having a more diverse species here is to benefit not only our cattle operation, but the wildlife. We have 2 different kinds of deer here. The elk utilize this. We have a bird preserve, so there's always pheasants in here. This thing will be full of wildlife for the rest of the season. My experience with NRCS is that we wouldn't have the ranch that we have without their help. So they've been a good resource for us, not only financially, but as an educational facility, and provide good leadership and people to work with that work with us in our goals and try to manage the ranch to the best we can.
And it's fun to see Garrett's so enthusiastic about this. When he sees the end product, he calls me just ecstatic over the results. And I am too. When you see on a dry year like this, and green rows right down where they're supposed to be, and every plant that you planted is growing, it's pretty pleasing.
The overarching goal is to renovate these stands so that way ranchers can use their land more effectively and in a situation that's more economically beneficial to them and more environmentally beneficial to our native range.
As far as this program, NRCS has a good one. This works. You have to believe Garrett that it'll work, and he's right, it does.